What's up, everybody? Welcome in. We are going to talk today about a girl nagging, cut hair, going blind, pillar pushing. What in the world are we talking about? If you will do me the favor, jump on in the video. Let's check it out. We got some lessons to learn, people. Lessons to learn. Welcome to the Equipped Disciple channel. My name is Rick McClatchey. I will be your host. We are here to be and to make disciples of Jesus, and we do that through daily devos, through Sunday sermons, and through other discipleship resources. We are here to equip you. What's happening, everybody? Welcome in. We are jumping into Judges chapter 16, Samson and Delilah, and just to give you an idea of some of the stuff talked about in this chapter. It's got a girl and some nagging, a lot of nagging, cut hair, going blind, pillar pushing, like all kinds of stuff happening in this chapter. And so I want to jump into the text right away. We'll just get cracking, and I'll put the slides on the screen, full screen, and we're just gonna take a crack at it and see what happens. So here we go, verse 1. Samson went to Gaza, where he saw a prostitute and went to bed with her. When the Gazites heard that Samson was there, they surrounded the place and waited in ambush for him all the night and at the city gate. They kept quiet all night, saying, "Let's wait until dawn, and then we'll kill him." But Samson stayed in bed only until midnight. Then he got up, took hold of the doors of the city gate, along with the two gateposts, and pulled them out, bar and all. He put them on his shoulders and took them to the top of the mountain overlooking Hebron. I read one commentary actually said that this is like a 40-mile trip. Kind of ridiculous, like kind of crazy. But I mean, can we just talk about the obvious thing here for a second, like where we started? So he went to Gaza and he saw this woman, and so then he just... wow. So we have a little bit of what we might call a character issue in Samson. And so we want to be, really cautious about how much we just look at Samson and then we're like, yeah, let's do what Samson does. Let's follow Samson's, example or whatever, because Samson had all kinds of stuff wrong. Like he had all kinds of stuff he was doing wrong, thinking wrong. Now, God still used him a lot. God still used him a lot to accomplish a lot of purposes, but it doesn't mean that validates the kinds of actions that he was taking. So we want to be just careful about that as we continue on throughout this story. And so that was, again, a 40-mile trip that he took carrying that big gate, just to kind of show how strong he was. So verse 4, sometime later he fell in love with a woman named Delilah. So it's interesting that it actually indicates that he fell in love with her, like, because that hadn't been really previously mentioned in any other situations with any other women at all that in his little, this life he's been living. So sometime later he fell in love with a woman named Delilah, and her name, the sound of her name sounds like a word that means darkness. It was kind of an interesting little play on words there, because of just the narrative that's going on in his life, where he starts out, Nazirite vow, called by God, miracle birth, like he shouldn't even exist. And now every decision that he's making is taking him kind of the wrong direction. And so it's just interesting how that's playing out. And so he fell in love with a woman named Delilah who lived in the Sorek Valley. The Philistine leaders went to her and said, "Persuade him to tell you where his great strength comes from, so that we can overpower him, tie him up, and make him something." Where did it go? "Make him helpless. Each of us will then give you 1,100 pieces of silver." Each of them are going to give her 1,100. Like, that's a lot of money. I mean, the price for a slave was 30 pieces of silver. When Jesus was sold to when Judas sold Jesus. And so 30 pieces of silver for a slave, they're going to pay 1,100 pieces each, because they knew that Samson was going to cause them trouble, and they wanted to get ahead of that game. And so they're willing to pay a lot of money. So Delilah said to Samson, please tell me, where does your great strength come from? How could someone tie you up and make you helpless? How can someone tie you up and make you helpless? That's not probably the kind of stuff I want to be sharing with other people. And Samson told her, oh, if they tie me up with 7 fresh bowstrings that have not been dried, I will become weak like any other man. So here he's almost kind of indicating that his powers come from magic, because he's using the number 7, which in their numerology in some of the pagan cultures around there, it was like perfection and completeness and, all that kind of stuff. And so he's like giving these indications that, if you do this thing, and then the fact that bowstrings are often made from animal product, and so like non-dried animal product stuff. So it's kind of an interesting picture that's getting painted there, and so kind of, I don't know, it's just fascinating how what he chooses to communicate to her, because he's obviously making stuff up here. And then in verse 8, the Philistine leaders brought her 7 fresh bowstrings that had not been dried, and she tied him up with them. And while the men in ambush were waiting in her room, she called out to him, Samson, the Philistines are here. But he snapped the bowstrings as a strand of yarn when it touches fire. The secret of his strength remained unknown. So we already have one shot here where she asked him to give me the secret of your strength. Give it to me, and she's trying to sell it to him like she loves him and we're in this together and all that kind of stuff. And so I don't know if he believes her or not, but he goes along with it. He tells her the secret, it's a fake one, and the very next night, she's got the Philistines upon her, and or upon him. Now, unless they were so hidden that he didn't know that they were there, right? But still, why are you messing with me like this? Why are you trying to take my strength away? Why would you not be one that would want to support who I am and what God has called me to? And I think that's why you want to be careful who you partner yourself up with in life, to make sure that you've got people in your life that, one, are going to be honest with you and tell you the truth and help you not to be, sucked in by your blind spots. But also, you don't want people that are going to take you down, that are going to ask you for the, what is the chink in your armor? What is your kryptonite? And then they go to the store and buy big boxes of that kryptonite. That's not good. That's not where we want to be with the people around us. And so then the secret of his strength remained unknown. Verse 10, then Delilah said to Samson, you have mocked me and told me lies. Won't you please tell me how you can be tied up? He told her, if they tie me up with new ropes that have never been used, I will become weak like any other man. So Delilah took new ropes, tied him up with them, and shouted, Samson, the Philistines are here. But while the men in ambush were waiting in her room, he snapped the ropes off his arms like a thread. Then Delilah said to Samson, you have mocked me all along and told me lies. Tell me how you can be tied up. He told her, if you weave 7 braids on my head into the fabric of a loom. She fastened the braids with a pin and called to him, Samson, the Philistines are here. And he awoke from his sleep, pulled out the pin with the loom and the web. How can you say I love you, she told him, when your heart is not with me? So now she's getting all hurt by this, and how can you say you love me when you're telling me these lies? when your heart is not with me? This is the third time you have mocked me and not told me what makes your strength so great. And then check out this verse 16. Because she nagged him day after day and pleaded with him until she wore him out. He told her the whole truth and said to her, my hair has never been cut because I am a Nazirite to God. And this is actually the last part of his vow, of his commitment for the Nazirite stuff that he had not broken yet, because all of the other stuff he had broken. So it was the one last thing. So again, sometimes we get hung up on his hair, that it was his hair that made him strong, which obviously that was part of the equation. But it was the Nazirite vow over all, this separation unto the Lord, this being chosen by God to do a specific work. And yet his personal desires, his fleshly desires, were the most important thing in his life. The insecurity or the arrogance, right? And it's interesting how insecurity and arrogance so many times go hand in hand. But he's so desperate for approval from Delilah that he doesn't just say no to her. He doesn't just say, get out of my space here. All you are trying to do is take me down. Instead, he continues to entertain. He continues to give little bits of information. And here finally, at the end, he's worn out. Let's put that back on the screen. Because she nagged him day after day and pleaded with him until she wore him out. And it's interesting, Jesus actually used an example kind of like this to describe how we need to be in regards to prayer. To ask and keep asking, seek and keep seeking, knock and keep knocking. Because when you ask and keep on asking, you're going to receive. When you knock and keep on knocking, the door is going to be open to you. And then he tells about the persistent widow who just kept coming to the judge, kept coming to the judge, kept coming to the judge. And even though the judge didn't agree with her, didn't really care for her, he gave her everything that she asked for, because he was like, man, maybe I can just get her to leave me alone. And so there's a little bit of that kind of dynamic going on here, is that Samson obviously did not want to tell her, but because she nagged him day after day. So I kind of wonder, how long did he last? I got my money on about 3 days, because, man. And so he told her the whole truth and said to her, my hair's never been cut because I'm a Nazirite to God from birth. If I am shaved, my strength will leave me, and I will become weak and be like any other man. When Delilah realized that he had told her the truth, it finally clicked here. She's like, oh, he just told me the truth right here. So she sent this message to the Philistine leaders, come one more time, because, she'd called them out numerous times already. For he has told me the whole truth. The Philistine leaders came to her and brought the silver with them. Then she let him fall asleep in her lap and called a man to shave off the 7 braids on his head. In this way, she made him helpless and his strength left him. Then she cried, Samson, the Philistines are here. When he awoke from his sleep, he said, I will escape as I did before, and I will shake myself free. But he did not know that the Lord had left him. Oof. This one hits me hard, folks. It's like, are you familiar? Are you familiar enough with the presence of God? Are you familiar enough with the Spirit of God that you can tell if he's gone? Because Samson couldn't tell. I know he's waking up from a sleep and stupor, kind of moment. But he woke up not realizing that the Spirit of God had departed from him. And the Spirit of God was the thing that brought him the strength to do the work that he was called to do. And so I just was thinking about just that whole thing about being aware of the presence of God. And then the Philistines seized him and gouged out his eyes, and they brought him down to Gaza and bound him with bronze shackles, and he was forced to grind grain in the prison. So it's interesting, that the compromise brought blindness, so he can no longer see, putting him in darkness. And in Samson's life, the thing that messed him up time and time again was his vision, was where he was looking. So it's almost like God was helping him in this process, because his eyes were causing him so much trouble, because he'd look over and he'd see a girl, he'd look over and see a girl, and he would go after that girl, pursue that girl. So it's interesting that the thing that was causing him the most trouble with his relationship with God was the first thing to go once the enemy came in. They brought him down to Gaza and bound him with bronze shackles. So he was blinded, he was shackled, and then he was put to slave labor as a result of this capturing. Now their god, the Philistine god Dagon, was actually a god over grain. And so they blinded him, shackled him, and made him in the service of their god. It's kind of a crazy picture of what's going on with them. And so he was forced to grind grain in the prison. So he was basically like just doing the work of Dagon, And now the Philistine leaders gathered together to offer a great sacrifice to their god Dagon. They rejoiced and said, "Our God has handed over our enemy Samson to us." So this is like not just a party, but this is a mockery of Yahweh, as they're like, "Hey, we won, suckers." And when the people saw him, they praised their God and said, "Our God has handed over to us our enemy who destroyed our land and who multiplied our dead." And when they were in good spirits, they said, "Bring Samson here to entertain us." And they brought Samson from the prison, and he entertained them, and they had him stand between the pillars. Samson said to the young man who was leading him by the hand, "Lead me where I can feel the pillars supporting the temple, so I can lean against him." Lean against them. And the temple was full of men and women. All the leaders of the Philistines were there, and about 3,000 men and women were on the roof watching Samson entertain them. He called to the Lord, "Lord God, please remember me. Strengthen me, God, just once more. With one act of vengeance, let me pay back the Philistines for my 2 eyes." And Samson took hold of the 2 middle pillars supporting the temple and leaned against them, one on his right hand and one on his left. So Samson cried out to the Lord, "Let me die with the Philistines." He pushed with all his might, and the temple fell on the leaders and all the people in it, and those he killed in his death were more than those he killed during his life. And his brothers and his father's whole family came down, carried him back, and buried him between Zorah and Eshtaol in the tomb of his father Manoah. So he judged Israel 20 years. So he was the judge of Israel for 20 years, spent some of that time grinding grain for Dagon. And so this last battle, this last scene, was much more a Yahweh versus Dagon than it was the Philistines versus Samson. And honestly, I think a lot of life is like that. A lot of life is actually more us representing the spiritual battle that is going on. And so to kind of keep that in mind, that we keep proper perspective. But I love, we see quite the story here with Samson of weakness. We see calling. We see miraculous things that bring him even about. And then we see just the brokenness and the fallenness of humanity in the way that he behaves. So we have numerous situations where he's getting himself, a lot of times with the women, making bad women decisions, just from the fact that he was so stuck on going and getting a Philistine woman, which is stuff that God had warned the people of Israel against, because he didn't want their hearts to be compromised towards the Lord. And so then he, gives in to her nagging, And then he gets his hair cut off and he's got no more strength and he's going to prison with no eyes. But it does say in there, then his hair had started to grow back. It doesn't mean that his strength came back, because he's still, even up to the point of being at the pillars, he still didn't have any strength. He had to cry out to the Lord, just kind of begging for mercy in that moment. But in the fact that it mentions, and his hair began to grow back, is just like this statement that cries out to the mercy and the grace and the love and the restoration that God administers to you and to me in this journey that we can make. We can be called by God, we can be set apart by God, and then we can make terrible mistakes. And yet God can still come and renew us, restore us, refresh us, and accomplish his purposes through us. Now, does that mean there aren't any costs and he just, erases the cost? No, it never says that Samson got his sight back. Also, it says that he died in the end. That the call of God upon him did not have to include dying in order to execute judgment against the enemy. Because as we look at Deborah and we look at Gideon and we look at Barak and we look at Ehud, these guys, they didn't die. They didn't die fighting the enemy. They survived and, judged for years and years and years afterwards. But because of all of the situations that he put himself in, he still accomplished what God wanted him to accomplish. And yet it cost him his life, because sin leads to death. Sin, when it is full grown, leads to death, and it can't be cheated. It just is. That is just the truth. So I love that all the way to the end. I love that Samson's heart began to be turned back to the Lord, where he just cried out to the Lord, hey, God, come and help me one last time. Let me do one more thing for you. So let's look at the life of Samson. Let's see his brokenness. Let's see the miraculous setup of his life. Let's see the journey. Let's see the restoration. Let's see the healing. And let's just let us be impacted by that we would continue to seek God and continue to set our eyes on the right things, to not give in to the fleshly desires, not give in to the temptations that we might encounter, but to set ourselves aside, apart, to serve the Lord, because that's where it's at, folks. So with that, God bless you. Have an amazing day, and I will see you tomorrow.
Hey, if you're getting value out of these videos, if you could just make sure you hit the like button, maybe subscribe to the channel. YouTube is suggesting a video right about here for you to check out. So go ahead and check out the next video. God bless.